Working. Hello, veterans, AKV employees, everybody watching. Hey, welcome to the Veteran Link YouTube channel where we talk about VA benefits here. I am your friendly VA accredited attorney, Matthew Lang, here with another topic. I appreciate everybody, as always, who comes to the channel and gets the information that we have to share and shares information with the population as well. Because the ultimate goal here is to make a process smoother between veterans and VA alike, and what's the best way to do that but through education? So we usually talk a lot about service-connected compensation, but I'm going to talk about it again today. I think sometimes it's good just to take a couple moments, step back, and summarize a little bit of what we've already talked about in other videos, kind of put things together, try to make more sense of things. And, well, as always taught, repetition is good too. So let's talk about service-connected compensation. Service-connected compensation is an interesting beast. There's a series of laws that go into it and different, well, legal gates, we'll call, that a veteran has to ultimately pass through. So let's talk about the gates first. We got the gates here on my notes, and we'll definitely do that first. And then what we want to get through is, after we get through the gates, when it comes to service-connected compensation, we want to talk about the three pillars again of service connection, because that's always huge, and I mentioned those in multiple videos because they are so important there. So we will do that as well. And I think we will leave it, well, let's talk about the pathways too. This might be a little bit longer video. I think we'll also then throw in the pathways. So let's talk about those three sections. Let's talk about the gates to service connection that we got to get through first. So then we can get to the pillars, ultimately, of service connection itself, and then we get to the different theories, ultimately, the different pathways, as you can call it, to service connection. So, service connection. For a person to receive service connection or service-connected compensation, they must pass through three distinct legal gates. Status is number one. Service is number two. And character is number three. So let's talk about gate one, status. This is ultimately the legal definition of a veteran. Now, I think what's always fascinating by the legal definition of a veteran is it may slightly change depending on the benefit you're going after. The law is just kind of fun that way. But underneath the 38 U.S.C., the law defines a veteran specifically to the VA as a person who is a veteran because they not only wore a uniform, but because they served in the active military, naval, air, or space service, and they were discharged or released under conditions other than dishonorable. So anything that meets an honorable status has to be the reason for discharge. So veterans, this is why your DD-214 is crucial. That's your certificate of release or discharge from active duty. It's the most important document in any file. It ultimately is your birth certificate as a veteran status. So now I know at this point some are going, well, what about National Guard and Reserve? And we're gonna get in there here as we talk about service. So the status is typically must have served on active military, naval, air, or space service. And we're going to find when we come down to gate two, the service requirements break it down a little bit further for us and how we get through there. So gate two, being the service requirements, not all military service is treated equally by the VA. We must distinguish between different types of service to know which rules apply. So this is where the law can become, well, more fun. We have different rules for different individuals. Active duty. Typically, this is Title 10 duty, and this is our main focus that the VA has to give benefits underneath active duty. So you could be an active component of any branch, but you could be on active duty underneath the reserves or National Guard, which could apply to. So let's see how my notes play out here for you. So active duty, this is the full-time duty in the armed forces. Again, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Space Force. I think I got it right there. Yeah, all the branches. The basic rule is that any injury or illness that occurs in the line of duty during this time is eligible for service connection. Now, there was a 24-month rule that pops into law, and generally those who enlisted after September 7th, 1980 must have served 24 continuous months. However, if you've seen my other videos, you know how excited I am about the law when it comes to exceptions. There's always exceptions to the rules, and we have a critical exception to this one. This rule ultimately does not apply to claims for disability compensation for an injury that occurred or was aggravated in the line of duty. A veteran who is injured on day 2 of boot camp, for example, becomes eligible for compensation. So there really is no actual number of days requirement for compensation. Now let's talk about those National Guard and Reserves. Now, reserve, for the most part, from my experience being a reservist and working within the HR and in the JAG Corps as a paralegal, reserves are Title 10. We're a federal entity, but you're not on active duty when you're on drill weekends. That's an inactive duty training status. So we also find National Guard is being more of a state entity, and there's times, of course, the federal government, the president can call upon them, and Congress. So typically they fall underneath the Title 32 section of law. So we're outside of our Title 10, and this is where we have special rules for National Guard and Reserve. So eligibility for the Guard and Reserve members is a little bit more complex. It definitely trips the VA up constantly. I remember when I first joined the VA in 2008, before I came out and was doing this. What's it not been, about 5 years? Wow, time flies. I got all kinds of Reserve National Guard questions. So did the other reservist National Guard members that worked in the VA, because it was so hard for anybody to understand that world, because it's so much different than the active component. So reservist National Guards members, do know your claims might be a little bit more challenging, just because the rules are a little bit harder, it seems, to understand for the VA. So VA, this is, if I was going to say, if you want to educate yourself on some sections of law and rules, definitely look up the National Guard and Reserve, because this is something I see that gets messed up fairly often. But let's break it down. Eligibility for Guard and Reserve members, again, as I mentioned, is more complex. These individuals are only considered veterans for disability purposes if active duty for training, as the VA calls it, active dutra. They were on full-time duty for training, like annual training, your AT, maybe an MOS school, perhaps a leadership school, and ultimately you were disabled by a disease or injury that incurred in the line of duty. So this is where it gets a little tricky, because even though you were on duty, veterans, if you're a Reserve or National Guard member, you're on active duty and you went to sick call, say for a back condition, we still got to show that that back condition didn't start before your active duty time. That qualifies in this point, and we got to show that it actually incurred in the line of duty. So it gets a little bit trickier at times. But there's the definition there. Remember, I mentioned the inactive duty for training. This is the weekend drills. Whatever it's called now, I always knew it as drills, mutas, battle assemblies. There's some other terms in there. I can't remember them now. But there's some fun ones too. I can't remember. But anyhow, you get my point. Those are the when you show up on the weekend. And at this point, you're eligible only if you were disabled by an injury, heart attack, or stroke that occurred during the training on that weekend. So it's a little different for Reserves and National Guard. When you're on the active duty for training, it could be a disease or injury that was incurred in the line of duty. But when it comes to just the weekends, the disease kind of disappears, in the sense that's not a heart attack or a stroke. So disease and illnesses usually do not count during the drill weekends, or those battle assemblies or mutas or what you may know those weekends as, unless it can be proven as an injury. So it does get a little tricky right there. It does get a little tricky. All right, so those are our first two gates. Our first two gates, again, is the status of being a veteran and the service requirements to, again, ultimately be a veteran for VA purposes. So guess what? Gate 3, character of discharge, is still a gate that ultimately is talking about whether you're eligible as a veteran. So now that we got you figured out if you're a veteran or not, we have to figure out the character of discharge to determine if you're eligible, and that might even kind of say you're not a veteran too if it's the wrong discharge type. Excuse me. So the character of discharge listed on your DD 214, veterans will determine if you have an other than dishonorable discharge. What the VA is going to look for is if it says honorable, that's an automatic eligibility. That's a no-brainer. That's easy. You can proceed to the merits of the claim. We've made it through all the gates at that point. A general under honorable conditions, again, same thing as an honorable. So for the VA, so you're going to proceed to the merits of the claim, automatic eligibility there, no questions asked. Now, veterans, if you see an other than honorable discharge on that 214 of yours, or you see a bad conduct discharge, or you see a dishonorable discharge, any of these that are not listed as honorable will likely involve a character of discharge determination by the VA. Now, you could always plead with the service departments to upgrade your DD 214, but what is nice is because the VA is a different department, different jurisdiction, they have different rules they can play by, and should be a little bit more lenient in granting you at least honorable for VA purposes. So that's where that character of discharge comes into play, and we have handled a good handful of those. So veterans, don't forget us out here if you need some help with that, getting you going and getting that claim granted after you get that character discharge figured out. Veteranlane.com, that's where you're going to find me at. Again, BSOs, accredited agents, other accredited attorneys are there to help too. You can always give them a shout. But there could be some rules in there that talk about statutory bars to benefits. It's going to get kind of messy in there. There could be rules that are saying, yeah, it's still allowed, even though it might be a statutory bar, and we get nuts in the law. We get plenty to work with there. Again, we've had some regulation changes in 2024, which ultimately should make it a lot easier, a little bit more liberal for the VA to grant the character discharges. So if you have a character discharge from years ago or prior to 2024, it may be possible that underneath the new liberal laws that all veterans, you can get that overturned. So something to think about. We're happy to appeal those for you too. All right. So those are the three pillars. The three gates. You got to get through the status, you got to get through the service, you got to get through the character discharge. Sounds like a lot, I know, but it usually goes by pretty easy and quick. Just takes your 214 for the most part, matching everything up for you. And then we figure out the disability and service, line of duty and whatnot as we go, typically. So let's talk about those three pillars of service. Connection. Once we get you through the gate, we're going to look at those three pillars. Now, again, you've probably heard me say these multiple times because this is a crucial foundation, and this is really where I feel a lot of service-connected conditions and their claims start. The gates, I think, are a little easier to get through, especially if you've got an honorable discharge. So I think for a lot of veterans, this is where your starting point is when you file your first claim or when we look at your appeals. Pillar 1, a current diagnosis, a current disability. Now, the first requirement is that the veterans, you must have a current disability at the time the claim was filed or while the claim is pending. VA does not provide compensation for injuries that occurred ultimately that haven't occurred yet, or they don't line up with all the other pillars here. So keep that in mind. You're going to want a current disability, a medical diagnosis, perhaps formal diagnosis if possible by a qualified medical professional. The appropriate one, by the way. So you have a mental health like PTSD, depression, anxiety, something along those lines. You're going to need more of a psychologist, psychologist and the equivalent. An MD is not, or a social worker is not going to be typically enough. But even though they're not, they can still get you in the door to show current disability. But just kind of giving you an extra little tip, practice tip out there is something to consider. So the VA will likely look to make sure that those diagnoses or those conditions are chronic in nature. That can be easily shown through medical evidence. Veterans, if you have it, could be shown through buddy statements, your personal statements, other lay evidence as well. So keep in mind the main part of the pillar here is having some sort of current disability. Do you actually have to have an actual diagnosis when you claim it? No, not necessarily. I would say it makes your claim a whole lot easier if you do, though. We do have rules such as the Saunders Rule, which came out in 2018, as I recall, which ultimately said that pain alone could be considered disability by the VA under circumstances where pain causes a functional loss. So let's go on to Pillar 2. Pillar 2 is an in-service event, injury, or disease. So we have to now take here and find evidence that shows veterans you had something in service that could possibly be related to the condition that you currently have. This could be in your service treatment records. For a lot of veterans, it's not the case because, well, we find ourselves in positions where service treatment records can't be documented. We find ourselves in positions where we can't go to medical. We can't get the proper medical help. We're just not in the right position for that, or perhaps we have a mission that needs to be carried on and we can't walk away from that, or something is going on there where we are forcing ourselves to self-treat. Could just be the environment. We don't want to be looked down upon as the weak link of the unit. So you got a lot of possibilities that could occur there. So might not be in your STRs. So we can also look towards maybe personnel records. We might find an event there. We might find duty location could be your event. Could be a medal that you were awarded, a jump badge of some sort, something that valor, perhaps even that has a description in it that points to the idea of an injury or an event that could have caused the claimed condition or disability that you have filed for. Lay evidence is huge as well, so your personal statements can be helpful. There's definitely rules out there for that, and buddy statements. So written statements from, again, veterans yourself, maybe from your family members, maybe other fellow service members, describing an event that occurred, that they witnessed, symptoms they observed, and all that other good stuff. So that's your in-service pillar there. Then our final pillar here is our medical nexus, and this is the third and final pillar that gets you service connection. We need all three of these in order to get it. If one of these are missing, service connection won't be granted. This nexus is ultimately the link that's between your current disabilities, that pillar 1 we just talked about, and your in-service event, disease, or occurrence, pillar 2, which we talked about. This is the most technical and demanding part of the claim, veterans, and this is a lot of times where we see your claims fail, is on the medical nexus. This is ultimately a medical opinion. VA is not allowed to create their own opinion. And when I say that, I'm not saying they're doctors or they're nurses or they're physicians. I'm talking about their RBSRs, their DROs, their decision makers cannot imply their own opinion, medical opinion. They do have to send it to a qualified medical professional. Well, we have seen a lot of changes in that arena, which I think is creating a lot of errors right now. But I'm not here to give you my soapbox or my opinion. We're just going to talk about the high requirement here for that medical opinion. Now, there's nothing that says you can't have your medical documents reviewed by another expert who is not a member of the VA and have them write that medical opinion, but you're going to want to make sure that they meet all the proper standards of proof and all the legal requirements as well. And I think that's where we struggle with a lot of our physicians out there, why they're doing their best to be helpful. The legal side is not their arena. So they're missing a lot of the required criteria in their opinions. So what we try to do here, just as another little practice tip and inside our curtain here, is if you have you have a primary care physician who wants to be helpful like that and wants to give you that medical opinion and is able to look over your documents, we're happy to let them know what questions have to be answered and give them those questions from a legal standpoint, just as the VA would to their own doctors and nurses and physicians as well. We will guide them in that way. We won't tell them what to say, but we will let them know what needs to be answered. And then we also got to make sure that the phrasing is right in those opinions as well. The at least as likely as not, the more likely than not statements that pop up and are required by law too. So it's all that legalese that I think we have troubles with. Even the contractors in the BA knows have a lot of troubles with them, the legal side. And I think just part of the nature of the beast. I mean, we're two different entities and we speak different languages, but we can definitely make it work. So those are your three pillars. Those are your three pillars there. We've gotten out through the gate. Say at this point, we've walked down the pillars. Maybe before we get through the pillars, we're there, but we're on the fence somewhere, or maybe we just got one toe over. We do have a legal standard of the benefit of the doubt rule that pops in there that VA you really have to consider. This is when you're adjudicating the claims. You got to remember the tiebreaker goes to the veteran, and we're not talking about quantitative. We're talking about quality of the evidence. And I'll put one plea out there. VA, please quit providing more weight to your inadequate VA exams over adequate private exams, and telling me that the reason you provide more weight was just because you said so. I could use a little bit of that more explanation. Okay, I'll get off of that. Just help you out, VA. Just help out. But those are our gates that we got through now. When we get those pillars done, ultimately, again, the current disability is the what. What are we claiming? What are we asking to be compensated for, veterans? The in-service, again, is the when and the where. And then when you get down to the medical nexus, you're talking about the why. So the what, the when, the where, the why. We're asking the 4 W's in 3 pillars. All right. Whew. Let's keep going on here. Once we've done that, we've got 5 pathways that I'm going to talk about here for service connection as part of this overview. So we get through the gates. We get through 3 legal gates. We get through the pillars of service connection. What are some of those pathways, though, that we can get that service connection when we walk through those pillars? Well, you have a direct service connection. I think that's what a lot of individuals are familiar with. That's the most common pathway, for sure. It applies when a disability resulted directly from an event, injury, or disease that occurred during active service or during a qualifying time in the Reserves or National Guard. That's your direct. In short, you get the secondary service connection. That's when you're already service-connected veterans for a disability that's related to your service that ultimately causes or aggravates, VA causes or aggravates, because for some reason the aggravation's missed every time on the exam request. So I want to help you out there too. Causes or aggravates another condition that was not directly related to service. So you get the proximate cause rule, which is the new condition must be approximately due to or the result of the primary service-connected condition, or you got the aggravation of a non-service connected condition. The aggravation rule, which is if service-connected condition causes or aggravates a non-service connected condition beyond to be worsened beyond its natural progression, then that's also secondary. 2 different elements there that's got to be answered in that pathway there. We also have aggravation. Veterans, if you have evidence of a condition that may have or did exist prior to service, then we got to go through the aggravation route. It's similar to the direct route, but we got a little bit more to talk about on that one, where we start talking about things like presumption of soundness, and we start talking about presumption of aggravation. And the burden of proof will tend to lie on the VA. In a lot of cases, there is a time where it could be on you. And for VA, just to help you out on that one, since we want to make things smoother, understand your presumption of soundness and aggravation. You have messed it up ever since I even worked for you. And we appeal those all day long to veterans. So if you have a claim where the VA has said, hey, it was prior to service, let us know. We're happy to help you on that. 99% of the time, from our experience, there's a legal flaw in that decision. We also get presumptive service connection. This is where we focus on the law, and this is what the law says on various categories, what I'll get into in a minute. But ultimately, it's a legal shortcut for you veterans. This is where ultimately the law says if you served in the certain location, or you got a certain it's got a certain disease or condition, you're just going to be presumed that those two are linked together. You're going to just kind of jump one of those pillars a little bit there, in a sense, but you're not. I mean, the nexus ultimately is presumed. So you'll see this in the CFR, especially. You'll get some chronic diseases. So you've got a list of chronic diseases that typically occur generally 1 year after discharge, that get diagnosed that weren't diagnosed in service. You got sections in the CFR that talk about tropical diseases and former prisoners of war, POWs, radiation exposure, Agent Orange exposure or herbicide exposure. Southwest Asia undiagnosed illnesses could come into play potentially in there. We've got the Camp Lejeune water, contaminated water issues. We've got now the PACT Act and NITERA there as well. So you got a whole list of stuff in all the rules and regulations there that could potentially give you presumption there. So that's something to look at as well. Here we go. Looks like my last pathway here. Veterans, there's another section out there called 1151 claims. It comes from 38 U.S.C. 1151. That's why we call it 1151. This is where the VA is going to pay compensation for disabilities that were caused by VA healthcare. Typically, VA healthcare, when what's the best way I can explain this? My notes, I think, are a little bit more complicated than they need to be, but the idea, let's water it down without watering it too low, because I don't want you to get the wrong idea. But it's the idea where they're unlike other service-connected conditions that you can prove an instance of fault by the VA. It's not quite a medical malpractice type claim, but you can show there's some fault, like such as negligence or carelessness in an error or judgment that ultimately causes the condition you have. A little bit trickier of a claim because there's a lot more there to prove, a little bit more evidence to go through, but it's not technically a service-connected condition, but it is treated like a service-connected condition if you can prove it ultimately, and you're paid for it as if it's a service-connected condition. So something somewhere the VA might be at fault for in a procedure, maybe a surgery, is a lot of times what I see, where there's an error in judgment, or negligence, like I said, or carelessness that led to the condition you have. Again, the rules are different on that one, but we're happy to look at those for you too, veterans. So there you go. We got our direct, we got our secondary, we got our aggravation, we got our presumption, and we got our section 1151s. Those are the legal gates. Those are the pillars. Those are the pathways. That's my overview for you when it comes to service connection. So this is just an overview. So veterans, is VA compensation always the easiest? No. There's definitely a lot of moving parts, a lot of rules, a lot of things to consider. And back here, we're going to consider all of them, if not most of them. I usually do my best to consider all of them. We're looking for every angle where you ultimately deserve those benefits and make sure you get those. We hope the VA does the same, but if not, that's what we're here for, and we will point out any errors that we see, and we'll argue those and appeal those, and then try to help the VA out there by adding some additional legal arguments and statements that says, hey, look, this is the way we're interpreting the laws and the rules, and yeah, hope you agree with us. Hope you're able to do the same. Wow. Definitely a longer video than probably most have been recently. So hopefully you stuck out the whole video with me. If not, and you had to come back to it, hopefully you came back and listened to the rest of it. But yeah, I just want to take a moment, put together the overview of service connection, because we're always talking about service connection. We're going to go through all this stuff in detail more than once, over and over, and we're going to get more detail as time goes. But if you wanted just a 30-minute overview, here it is, service connection. All right. As always, I appreciate everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment if necessary. I do my best to get to the comments. I'm not always the quickest because I'm the only one monitoring the social media as well right now. Maybe I can find some help there one day. So reach out. You never know. I might have a job for you. Maybe not. All right. Veterans, DKV employees, and everybody watching, have a wonderful Tuesday. Have a terrific, tremendous Tuesday. And I'll see you next Tuesday.